Well, hello. Welcome back to the Freedom Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm your host and freedom engineer, Lindsay, and I'm here today to help you cultivate your intentional sense of freedom. And we're going to dive into what that means. But first, I have so much to tell you from a mindset shift that I know is going to be a game changer for you, as well as an amazing story that is an almost unbelievable manifestation story that happened to me that I really can't wait to share with you guys. It's so mind blowing. It still, even when I tell the story, I'm kind of mind blown myself, even though it's been over a year now, just about a year since it happened. So yeah, I mean that's the thing. I think my last episode I published was March 24th or 26th of 2024. So here we are in March 2025. It's been almost a year. I never actually thought I was going to come back to this podcast. I kind of had put it to bed, so to speak, permanently in my mind. And I even started up a couple other ventures, which I'll go into. But first of all, I I want to tell you why I'm here and what's changed and what you can expect from this show moving forward. So I was sitting in my rocking chair and I was on X and I saw something about Elon Musk's new AI Grok, and I thought, oh, I'll try it out. I'd been kind of avoiding it because I just was happy with the Chat GPT. So I went to Grok and I was like, well, I don't know what to ask. So I was thinking for a moment and then it prompted me a couple of ideas. It's like, you can ask me anything. And then it had a couple examples. And one was, I can help you build a personal brand. And I thought, oh, that's a good idea. Let's see what it says. So I did that, kind of answered its questions, told it my story about, how my parents passed away, how we moved up here to Idaho, how I raise sheep, how I have my kiddos, how important it is to make memories, and how like building a meaningful life is so meaningful and important to me. Um, I don't think I used the word freedom, but I might have. I don't remember. And I know for a fact I never told it anything about the podcast because, like I said, it was out of sight, out of mind. I wasn't even thinking about it. I was thinking this thing was going to take me in a whole new direction, to be honest with you. And it came back and it said, you are a freedom engineer. You help people attain their freedom, their personal freedom. And I was like, jaw dropping. I was like, no way, that did not just happen. So, sure enough, that's what it said. And I said, oh my gosh, that's crazy. I said, I have a podcast that I haven't been dedicating myself to. It's called The Freedom Entrepreneur, and the whole thing was centered around this idea of freedom, building freedom. And I told it, I said, I stopped for a couple of reasons. The first reason was because I felt bored with my guests. Like, I love guests, I love talking to people, but I started getting these, what is the word? I started getting these like people who wanted to come on that I felt like just had an agenda. They didn't really, they weren't mission focused. That's the thing. They were just there to sell something, and I didn't want to be um their pawn. Okay. And I noticed this one day when I was interviewing a guy, and I don't even think I actually even aired his podcast. But I remember in talking to him, and like he wouldn't even look at me in the eyes. And then at one point I asked him, I said, what was your why? Like, why did you start this endeavor? And he looked up at me and he goes, nobody ever asked me that. That's a great story. And all of a sudden, then the interview made me feel better. You know what I mean? But it just hit me. I'm like, I'm just like a to-do on his schedule to show up, to give us a pitch and sell stuff. And I'm like, I don't want to be that for people. And that was one reason. The second reason was I felt like I'll be honest, I felt like I was suffering from imposter syndrome. I didn't feel like I was. I was suffering from imposter syndrome. I had been podcasting for a year, a little more than a year. I had branched out, gotten built my business and was doing it, but it was like I was in the struggle too. And here I felt like I'm setting myself up to be this have it all together, freedom seeker who found my freedom and, passive income the guru, blah, blah, blah. But I was tied to my business. I was tied to being able to make money. I had to have an income because I didn't have enough passive income yet to make it make sense. I had some, but it wasn't like paying all my bills. I still was busy. I still felt overwhelmed. I still struggled with the stuff that we all struggle with. And I felt like a fraud. And I thought, I don't like, who am I to get out here and teach this to people? And that's kind of why I was leaning on my guests initially, was because they had been in that position of expert and it made sense to share that. So, anyway, all that to say is I just gave it a break and I really moved on. I started a tech company. It's called Biz in a Box Solutions. I started business consulting, which I think you guys, if you were listening, you might know that. But I just dove into that. I started a new podcast called Thriving Holistic Practitioner, focusing on helping holistic practitioners thrive, build a thriving practice. And it was really great because those people really didn't have an agenda. They were genuinely caring about just sharing their heart and message to help other people. So I enjoyed that. But it wasn't, I realized, in fact, I had somebody reach out to me and she said, "Why are you just talking about practitioners? You're so good at all of business stuff. I don't understand why do you not help other businesses?" Was her main question. And I'm like, no, I can help anybody. I just thought I should like niche it down a little. Anyway, it got me thinking and it kind of tied in with a whole bunch of stuff that was happening. And this is what leads into the manifestation story. So, first, let me say this. I want to talk about the mindset shift because this is the biggest reason why I'm here and why you want to listen to this podcast. And then I'm going to tell you this amazing manifestation story that is like effing cool. Like I'm a mom, so I try to keep it clean. But if this wasn't meant to be clean, I would be cursing because it was so stinking cool. So listen, Grok, after I told it that I didn't want to do this podcast and imposter syndrome and all that, it said, listen, you are not an imposter. You are engineering your freedom just like everybody else. You left your corporate job, you moved to a state to create a lifestyle for yourself. It told me all the things that I had done that was engineering my freedom and I was building it with intentionality. I mean, people don't just get up and leave their house and their career to go live in a log cabin in the woods. Like that's not what people do. And so I'm like, oh yeah, I guess so. It makes sense. Like just because I don't feel like I have it all together every day doesn't mean that I'm not being intentional about building a lifestyle and furthering that lifestyle. And then that coupled with this other really amazing mindset I've got to share with you. Actually, I credit my little sister for sending this to me. It was a Mel Robbins clip. They were talking about laundry and I don't know, I guess a lot of moms struggle with the whole laundry thing. I know my little sister does. She struggles. She gets them clean, but she doesn't always get them folded and put away. I'm a little different. I just do it. My kids do their own laundry, and then on the weekends I do my laundry. I just mostly get it done. It's just me and my husband, maybe some towels, so on. Not to say that I don't have anxiety over laundry occasionally, like if I get sick and the family's sick and we get behind or we go camping and that kind of thing. But that's not the point. The point of this clip was Mel Robbins had this lady on, and this lady goes, "I don't know why we feel like we have to get the laundry done. Who made that rule that there was like this finished finality to it?" She's like, "Laundry is a cycle. Some clothes are dirty, some clothes are clean, some clothes are being worn. Everything is in this cycle of laundry. And really, all that matters is that we have enough clean clothes. If we could just focus on having enough, that's the answer. And we can just stop giving ourselves a hard time." And I gave it a little heart because what I liked about it was the fact that it was the cycle. And that really resonated with me in this conversation as far as freedom engineering, because it really is a cycle. And I think the reason why I had imposter syndrome so intensely is because I was setting an expectation that I couldn't say that I had a freedom lifestyle until I met certain criteria. I had to have my passive income or my reoccurring income had to meet or exceed, obviously, my financial needs. I needed like time freedom was a big one. I put a lot of emphasis on. And it's crazy because I've had time freedom. When we first moved up here, I took a year off and I was depressed because I didn't have purpose. So, I mean, I have had both sides of it and I still wasn't happy. And I think that's some of the psychological side of this is where we can get hung up in this where we're focused on the rut we're stuck in, and we lose sight of what we're building or what we have that's going right. Hence the cycle. And that's what I'm saying is like the freedom engineering is a cycle. I am in a cycle where I have little kids. Life is going to feel busy. My financial needs are higher now than they ever will be. Once my kids get out of here and they get on their own or they start having their own jobs, money will be a little easier it'll just be my husband and I. So it's a cycle, just like anything else. And this is the cycle I'm in. And I think what matters more than anything is being intentional with your time, being and making sure that you're not a slave to being dictated by outside circumstances. Okay. So for me, I realized like this is where I get really focused on creating intentionality in my life, which in a sense is freedom engineering. I've chosen to withdraw myself from taking participation or participating in activities that do not bring me joy. That means I've walked away from consistent meetups with friends that wasn't that they weren't bringing me joy. I just felt like there wasn't the best use of my time in that particular case. However, I do have other friends that I would meet up with on a pretty consistent basis that I didn't feel joy. I felt like it was not meeting me or pushing me to be better, and I've stopped meeting with those people. That is freedom engineering. Freedom engineering looks like taking control of your schedule, dictating your own time. That can be hard when you have a job, right? Because you feel like you have to show up for somebody else. You're required to do things on their schedule. Just remember, though, that that job is a choice for now, and you're in a cycle. If this is your job and you're committed to it, or maybe your inner calling is saying you want to be out of the job. So being aware of that and then engineering it so that you have a plan to work towards. I find that when I'm being intentional, my best days are when I feel in control of my future and knowing that I'm a limitless creator. So I've built some new habits, and one of them is just taking a moment every morning to read the Bible, connect with God, and remember that God is limitless and that I am limitless. And like today is the day, the best day of the rest of my life. Like today is a new day. Every day is a new day. Every day I have this ability to have infinite possibility in front of me. And by just taking that moment first thing in the morning and reminding myself of that calmness, that peace, and that tranquility, it reminds me that I can never actually be stuck. Even though I might feel that way, I'm engineering it so that I am moving past that with intentionality. So, my friends, that's really what I'm here to say is that what you can get from this podcast is going to be actual strategies. It's going to be focused around three main pillars. The big one is mindset. I've never deviated from mindset, it's a huge part of who I am. The second piece is tech. I love technology and streamlining, automating, building processes for businesses. And you'll hear me talking a lot about that. That's my Biz in a Box Solutions business, okay? And the third thing you're going to get from this podcast is, oh my stars, that's hilarious. I totally just spaced it. Oh, business strategy. I think you can tell that I'm going to not be as focused on that as I think I am. I love business strategy, but I find it's, I don't know, it's like in this past month, I think I've really been leaning into what is God asking for me? What am I showing up as? Who am I here to serve? And business strategy is a helpful tool. Don't get me wrong, and it will be a conversation we're going to have on occasion. But the thing that I find is even more, everything stems from the mindset, like the goodness of life. The strategy can only take you so far, you know? So to me, it's an afterthought. It's an important afterthought, but it isn't a primary focus of my life. Everything about my life is centered around my mindset, my energetic bubble. And when it comes to engineering your freedom, what you're really doing is you are curating your energetic bubble for the highest energy satisfaction. That's the best way I can say it. Strategy can help with that. Business strategy can help with that, especially if you have an actual struggle that's hurting, affecting you. But a lot of it has to do with presence and being present. Anyway, So now let me tell you this amazing manifestation story. So it was March 10th last year. I left the Conscious Investor Growth Summit, which I share about in the last couple episodes of the podcast and what my big ahas were. And I said, and I don't even know if I said this, I haven't gone back and listened to the episode. But when I left that event, I was dead set on buying a business. I watched the main speaker that I wanted to see. I watched her. She talked about how she lived in Texas. She bought a construction business in Florida. She described how she did it. She described what she would do differently. And I thought, I want to sit with her and pick her brain. So I invited her to lunch. We went to lunch. And and she was so gracious and she shared so much with me. And when I left that event, I was so energetically high. I was like embodied, like emboldened. I just didn't think there was anything that could stop me. Okay. That coupled with this clarity that I'm buying a business. Now, what's really interesting about that, what I just described, I was recently watching a Joe Dispenza clip on YouTube, and he describes the secret to manifestation. And he talked about a study, and I don't remember the details of where the study was done or whatnot, but essentially, they were looking at particles and how they would react to a couple of scenarios. One scenario was a group of people imagined their life changing or imagined the particle changing. Just imagining it didn't make the particle change. Then there was another group who was near the particle. They were not envisioning anything clearly. They were just focused on feeling good. And nothing affected the particle. The particle stayed. But when they put themselves in a energetic state of feeling good and had mental clarity about what they wanted and intended, the particle changed. And that I realized when I heard that clip, I looked back and I'm like, wow, every time something really miraculous has happened in my life, that has happened to me. That exact recipe, I suppose you could say. So in this case, I left this event. I was energetically high. I was mentally clear, and I set an intention to buy a business. And I also was clear about what kind of business I wanted: construction, something in construction, automotive, or marketing tech, something like that. And I spent a lot of time like looking up on business buying websites, and I didn't know how it was going to happen. And I told God, I'm like, I don't know how this is going to happen, but I know there's people who are ready to get out of their business, and I know I could find them, but I don't know how. And I mean, at the time I was working from home, I barely ever left my office. So the odds of me finding somebody was pretty even more amazing. Like, and now that I say that, like, I'm even more blown away by this. So I don't know if you know this about me, but back then I was still hosting a podcast called My Dream Log Cabin. And it was a podcast I started for a local log cabin company I worked for when we first moved up here. I was also petering out on that podcast. Let me tell you, it was getting really hard to come up with content. I was just, every time I did an episode, it felt like a chore. Now, when we're talking about engineering our freedom, that's a big red flag. You know, we can get into that on another episode. But at that point, I knew it was time to let it go. And my mind, my logic brain was like, well, I need the money. But my energetic brain was like, I don't know if I can keep doing this. I'm like really done. However, I wasn't done yet. So I was driving around one day and I saw this sign for Off-Grid Unlimited. And I thought, man, I wonder what they do. That would be so cool. Maybe he could be on my podcast. So I called him and we set up a time. And he was very curious about who I was. How did I come to be in this position where I'm doing this podcast? And I shared it with him. I told him, you know, I worked with Caribou Creek Log Homes. I helped them do this podcast. And I thought that living off grid would really tie in well with the audience. And so we started talking about land and building and off grid and all that. And let's see, after we were done with our conversation, oh, I remember. So during our conversation, he had asked me how I came to this. And I had explained that I used to work with them, but then when COVID came, and I needed to homeschool my kids, I left and I started building this consulting business. And that's what I'm doing. And I just host this podcast kind of as a side thing. And he said, "Oh, well, we need to talk more because I could maybe use your services." And I said, "Okay." So we set up another time and we talked and I listened to his pain points. I mean, was basically a renewable electrical contractor. He was struggling because he had communications coming in from every which way. He was overwhelmed wearing all these hats. He had a hard time. He was having turnover in the office, had office people who were coming in claiming they were experts at this, that, and the other and screwing things up. And he would have to fix it. Like it was just draining him. And he was really like, I don't know what to do. And I basically said, you need systems. You need systems because you need communication systems. You need a CRM system. You need to have systems for your processes for your QuickBooks handling, invoicing, all of it. And I was going to put together a consulting package where I was going to come in and basically give him systems, write out SOPs, hire and train a replacement, maybe be like an office manager, help get things going, and then bounce. Because I literally told him, I said, I do not want to be an employee. Do not ask me to be an employee. I will never make a good employee anymore. I'm not going to be a good one. So he looked at me. He's like, I would never ask of that of you. You definitely, I know you can help me, but I can also see exactly what you're saying. So now another meeting comes and I decide this time I'm ready to give him my pitch. Like I had considered what it would take, my time investment and everything else, put some signs in front of it. And I was going in to give him my big pitch. And honestly, I was a little nervous. This was going to be one of the bigger pitches I've ever done. And I don't know this guy's bank statement. Like, can he afford me or not? You're always thinking through those things. So I was in there. I discussed with him what I had in mind, what I would do to help him. And I was ready to give him my number. And I thought, I'm going to just ask him how he's feeling about this so far. So I did. And he sat back in his chair and he looked at me and he said, I'm going to twist your arm. Here's what I'm thinking. I'm going to twist your arm until you become a 50% owner in my business. And I was like, what? You're kidding. I was shocked. I was truly shocked. And of course, that was like loaded with a lot of thoughts, so like questions. Well, what does that mean? What are you expecting of me? How does this work? I can't just work for free because I have another business that's paying my bills. Like a million and one things went through my mind and totally derailed me. Later, I thought about it. We had a lot of more meetings discussing it. And then ultimately, I took the plunge and I was like, yeah, let's do it. I had asked for owning a business, and here it was. So now I am also the owner of Off Grid Unlimited Electrical Company. We are licensed for off grid and on grid and grid tie. So it's like, wow, right? Like the year has just so much has happened in a year. It's kind of crazy, actually, now that I think about it. But that's just one of those stories that like I couldn't have I couldn't have made that happen if I want. Like, I didn't try. It fell in my lap. And it fell in my lap because I had the clarity and I had the energy behind it. So, as we move forward, as we talk about freedom engineering, that is truly the secret here. We want to talk about creating habits that are systems and processes. Habits are systems, processes, rituals, right? That help us manage our energy and our mindset so that we can engineer our freedom. Okay, so that's what you're here for. That's what this is going to be moving forward. Yes, I will talk about tech because I leverage technology in my life constantly to help make my life easier as an entrepreneur and business strategy as an entrepreneur. These are all big things that entrepreneurs need. So I hope you're here for it. I'm grateful you're here for it. And I would encourage you to please subscribe to the show. You can also find me. I'm on Instagram. Look up Lindsay Sutherland on Instagram. Also, my website is probably another good way to connect with me. It's bizinaboxsolutions with an S.com. And you can connect with me there too if you want to set up a time or you want to talk through some things. One of the things oh, I know what I was going to tell you. Hold on, one thing. Side funny trail really quick. So when that offer came to pass with Off Grid, I realized that this consulting business that I had going, I wanted to keep it going. I didn't want to put all my eggs into one basket. And I really like what I do. And I also realized I wasn't going to be able to do it alone. So, a friend of mine who we had been friends, and she's been on this show before, her name is Emily Tornator. She is a systems builder. And together, I just said to her, I said, maybe we should partner up because I can't do this alone. And you also are, needing help. Like we complement each other. I'm the visionary, I'm a marketer, I'm business system strategist, but she is the deep thinker, critical thinker, finding the holes in the process. She's so good at that. So we partnered up on the Biz in a Box solutions. And she lives in Florida. But where was I going with that? Oh, because one of the things that we're doing is to help entrepreneurs by building we're calling it an accountability group, but it's really more like a mastermind. The focus of the group is to create a space for crowdsourcing wisdom, community, that feeling that entrepreneurs get where they just feel alone. And you can't talk to your family. They don't really get what you're doing. Many of your friends are W-2 employees, so they don't have the same mindset. It's really getting around like-minded people and solving problems. That's it. So that is something we're offering. You can check that out at bizinaboxsolutions.com under coaching or consulting. We have a whole page dedicated to that. And we'd love for you to join us because I think that that's something that is needed now more than ever is, this connection and this ability to lean into each other with an emphasis on collaboration over competition. That's really the heart of what we're doing. So I encourage you to check it out. If it's resonating with you, go ahead and check it out. And if you want to just book a time to talk to me about it, I'd be more than happy to do that with you as well. All right, my lovely friends, I appreciate you so much. Until next time, we'll see you then. Bye for now.